guys, I want you to take some notes. So this is about effective communications with your teenagers. And like Paula said, I've worked with young people and parents for over 20 years. And as you can imagine, over the years, we have seen statistics. We have seen scary statistics. But I'm not here to scare anyone. I'm here so that we can speak about what we as parents can do so that we can mitigate these scary statistics. I'm just going to go quickly and give you the scary statistics. We know that 40% of our teenagers are lonely. Did you hear that? If you heard that, I want you to put on the chat. That's the statistic. 40% of our teenagers are lonely. Just drop 40% there. And as you drop it, I want you to think that you have a teenager. I have a teenager. So that's 40% is almost 50%. So between you and I, one of our teenagers is lonely. Can you imagine? And we're not talking about teenagers who are orphans. We're talking about teenagers who are from so-called good families. So that gets us thinking. As psychologists, it gets us thinking. So why is this phenomenon? Why is this so prevalent? And it happens over and over and over again. Every time there is that research, it comes back to that 40, 45, sometimes 50, right? Now, here is what's even worse. Lonely teenagers are more vulnerable to crime exploitation, drugs exploitation, sex exploitation, and mental health problems. I hope you can connect me telling you the statistic with the problem. So then we come back. So why is it so important that we have effective communications with our young people? So obviously, you know that a lonely person feels they are not being heard, they're not being listened to, they're not being valued, they're not being connected with. So what is it we as parents can do? And I want you to be thinking, what questions can I ask? What questions can I ask from the information I'm hearing? And I want to remind you that as I speak about this as a professional, as well as a parent of a teenager and teenagers actually. So I come to this topic very intentional, not just to give you information, but also to remind myself that I am walking that journey as well. So I'll tell you something. If your teenager has spoken to you in grunts, my one has spoken to me in grunts, right? If your teenager has hid themselves in the room all day and not spoken to you, I can tell you my one has hidden themselves in the room and not spoken to me all day. So what you're going through, I'm going through too. So none of us, no one is invincible. And I had a conversation with Paula before. I have worked in all sorts of settings, and I've worked with all sorts of people from the highest of the classes to some of the, you would call the lowest of the classes. And this is something we know. There is what we call a convergence culture with teenagers. So what your teenager is going through, wherever you are, I'm in Oxfordshire. one of my clients in Japan, their teenager is going through exactly the same. Another one in downtown Texas, they're going through the same. Why? Because there's this what we call a convergence culture. They are in the same moment, in the same generation. They're going through the same things. They're reading the same material. They're listening to the same stuff. They're speaking the same lingo. They're going through their biological, psychological processes are happening the same exact way that it's happening to yours, the same exactly way that it's happening to mine, right? So I like to give context before I go down into telling us reminding us what we can do to build this communication with them. Remember what I said from the beginning. A lot of us are so concerned about mostly, especially teenagers, about their grades, about who they're hanging out with, about whether they're having drugs, whether they're having sex, they're having all those, underage sex. The other day I was speaking on BBC Radio about the World Health Organization report on alcohol, and we know England is the worst for underage alcohol, right? Do you know? And why am I telling you this? Why I'm telling you this is so that we know that we are going through the same things together. So why is it that how we communicate with our teenager is going to help them improve in their lives? What is it that we can do? So, at Raising Remarkable Teenagers, we have this, what we call the 3M framework. And I want you now to write this down. We have modeling, mentoring, and motivating. Modeling, mentoring, and motivating. As I explain this 3M framework, you will see why this is how we communicate, and this is how we communicate with our teenagers. And you will see yourself in it, and I will see myself in it, and decide, is this effective communication or is it not effective communication? I would say effective communication is when you are able to communicate with your young person, whether verbally or non-verbally, in a way that helps them shift the direction and the trajectory of their lives. So effective communication with our teenagers is that communication that helps them shift the trajectory of their lives. So let's come back to this 3M. I started with modeling. In psychology, we know the most influential way of communicating with a person is modeling. And this, most of the time, does not even require for you to say a word. Modeling is the way we live our lives, we as parents. So I want you to remember, in every moment, you are communicating. The question is it effective? And is it driving them? Is it moving your child in the direction, in the trajectory of their dream? So modeling, how are we living our life? What are you doing? How are you living your life? I like to use this quote really, really much. Our actions speak so loud, our children can't hear what we are saying. When you think of modeling, I want you to think in terms of our actions speak so loud. Our actions speak so loud. Our actions speak so loud. Our children can't hear what we're saying. Before we move on, I want you to write that down in the chat. Please drop it down in the chat. And why am I asking you to write these things down? We know when you engage yourself, learning happens when we fully engage ourselves, both mentally and even physically, viscerally. We learn more. That's why I'm asking you to write this down. If you can drop it in the chat, what I said, that our actions speak so loud, our children can't hear what we are saying. So that's modeling. You know, how many times have you asked your child, have you asked your teenager to do something that you yourself are not doing? I put my hand up. Many times my own young person has challenged me for shouting. I'm the first one to say, I don't have it all together. I believe that we should not be shouting at our children, but I have fallen short. Not once, not twice, not thrice, many times, but I'm growing. So sometimes we say to them, don't shout at me. But we shout at them. So the rules are different for the parent and the teenager. So what are we modeling? We are modeling, there's a dissonance in what we are modeling. We are not living what we are asking them to live. Remember, effective communication, modeling. How am I living my life? Because my actions speak so loud, my child can't hear what I'm saying. I can tell them all day, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But if I'm doing the same thing all of the time, we know scientifically that is what they're going to learn to do, because we learn more what we see, not what we are told. It's not the telling, it's not the yelling. It's the modeling that's most effective. I want to move on quickly to mentoring, because I know we need to have a conversation with you guys. So mentoring. Mentoring is when you share your life authentically, and also you share stories around you, stories that have shaped you. Now, do you want your child to be a certain way? What stories are you telling them? How vulnerable are you? How real are you? How authentic are you? Can you speak to them about your failures? Can you share with them about how you didn't always get it right? A lot of parents make this mistake of trying to pretend we always got it right, especially when we were younger. What's more effective is, yes, you can, I mean, we got some things wrong, some things we got right. So what about authentically sharing that? That is what mentoring is about. Mentors, people that our children look up to. You want to be your child's mentor, someone who is authentic in the way you live your life, the way you share your stories. And also, if you don't have particular stories to share, there are other people who have gone through some of the lessons that you want to share with your child, that you want to share with your teenager. That's what mentoring is about. But it requires for us to be vulnerable. But remember, vulnerability is strength. Authenticity is strength. So never be afraid to share your failures with your young person. Because that way they realize, actually, look, my mother or my father or my grandma or my auntie, whoever is looking after me, they are human. And therefore, I don't have to be afraid of failing. So mentoring, when it comes to effective communication, I want you to think in terms of, how am I mentoring my child? How am I mentoring my teenagers? I'm going to move on now to motivating. I know a lot of people run into motivating it because it's about telling, right? It's about telling them what to do. It's about lifting their spirits, and it's all that. But here's the thing we know. You can speak all you like, but if the young person does not believe in you as a model, as a mentor, they don't get anything from you. They don't benefit from you. And that's why we started with modeling, and then we went to mentoring. And now we are talking about motivating. And when you get it right, when you get the modeling and the mentoring right, then you become a very influential motivator. And what do we mean when we talk about motivation? It's not all this we hear about motivational speakers and all that, right? That's not, when I talk about motivation, it's that ability to ignite the life within your child because they believe in you, because they believe your word, because what's coming from your mouth, what's coming from your eyes, what they can see, what they can feel of you, inspires them to be great, inspires them to be all they can, inspires them to be courageous, inspires them to be curious, because they know, I'm not going to be judged by my parent. I'm just going to be loved, right? And this does not mean we excuse mistakes. This does not mean we excuse bad behavior. But it's even when we call it out, we are calling it out with love, in the knowledge that there is greatness within that child, right? You know, you can tell all the time. I tell my children, I tell them off, right? But here is one thing, especially when it comes to motivating, I want you to remember what we call the 20-80 rule. Before you tell them off for one thing, praise them for 4. Before you tell them off for the one thing, because we must call them out. Otherwise, there is not going to be behavior change if we don't call them out, right? But before you call them out, look for 4 things that you can praise them for. Because I'll tell you, here's how the brain works, especially in teenage years. They have a tendency to want to receive good, and that's why they seek thrill, right? So when you praise them for 4 things, what happens is they become more receptive. And so when you drop the, I'm not really happy about what you did, they receive it better. But if you go straight in there and say, I'm not happy with what you did, it hits, it's hitting. They're not open, they're not receptive. And that's not what we want. So when it comes to motivating, I want you to think about the words that you use, the angle you're coming from. And that's why I talked about the 80-20 rule, right? We're always thinking in terms of, in this moment, the communication I'm having with this child, is it constricting them, or is it helping them to grow? Is it constricting them, or is it helping them to grow? And that's why it's very, very important for us to be intentional. Let's not just jump and take, actions, punishment, and, all these things that we throw at our children. But be so intentional, be so in the moment, asking yourself, in line with the three framework, the 3M framework, am I being a model? Am I being a mentor? Am I being a motivator? Obviously, there's a lot we can speak about. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to ask Paula to come back and see if there is questions we can answer for now, and if there is anything that we need to speak about. But for now, that is that's the piece. I hope I haven't taken so much time.
No, absolutely fine. I think that was a lot. You gave us a lot to think about. And it's so important, especially when you said about the 80-20 rule, is sometimes how often do we just criticize our children constantly, and then we wonder why they don't feel good about themselves. And we might say we're doing it out of love. We're trying to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. But you can't really motivate somebody by pushing them down. You've got to encourage them,
Exactly.
more than anything.
And can I just say something? Yes. Just today, I was doing a training and someone was talking about, you've got to be cruel to be kind. And I explained to them, whether you go scriptural, whether you go scientifically, whichever way you go, you cannot teach kindness by being cruel.
Mm-hmm. That is so
and
true.
They said, oh God, I had never thought about it, because it's something we throw around. You've got to be cruel to be kind. Mm-hmm. No.
It's so true. It is so true. Is there anybody who has any questions or comments? Feel free to drop them in the chat and I can read them out if you'd like to. Let's have a look. So while we're waiting for people to drop their questions or comments in the chat, what I think is important to know is, how do you create a sort of safe environment for your child or your teenager to be able to come and speak to you? Because I think sometimes teenagers have that thing where they immediately think, my parents don't understand, they don't get me, I can't tell them what I'm feeling. So how can we create a good environment for them?
Do you know what? Do you know the amount of time teenagers tell me, if I tell my mom that they're going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is valid. That's how they feel, right? So how we create a safe space for our teenager to be able to, our kids in general, to be able to speak. Again, it's being that safe person. Can they feel safe within you? Are you a model? Are you, like I said to you, if I'm angry, no one wants to contend with an angry person. Mm-hmm. You don't get anything from me. But if I am well, and that's why I think we've spoken with you, Paula, before, it's very important as parents look after our well-being, after ourselves, so that we also are safe. Because here is the thing we know. Children read you. Even before you say a word, they read you. Mm-hmm. So what is that they are reading? We as human beings are electromagnetic beings.
Yeah. Yep.
They can feel you. And you guys, if you don't believe me, right? Have you ever gone into a room and felt, there was something, I don't know what it was, but it didn't feel safe? Mm-hmm. Our children do that all the time. Yeah. What we don't want is to be so repulsive that we never get an opportunity to hear their dreams, to hear their fears, to hear their jokes. You want to be so safe. Like I'll tell you, children tell me all sorts of things, all sorts. And there's something I learned a long time ago, is to put that face, not, oh my God, like when you go, oh my God, that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
But when you go, tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah.
They begin to open up. They begin to open up. And that's what you want. And I want you, as you hear that, sometimes when you're an open person, you will hear things that you don't want to hear, right? You will hear things that will shock you, right? But it's up to us to be that anchor, right? Don't come with a punitive, like a punitive wanting to right the wrongs right there. That's not what we are. What you want is to be, let them bounce those things. Let them, let them throw their crazy ideas to you. Let them throw their dreams to you. That's how they'll end up telling you their fears. That's how you end up hearing of the crazy mistakes they've made. You hear of the crazy things that happen to them online, right? You hear all that when you're open and receptive and safe. You do not hear that. That's why just last weekend, Paula, I was teaching a group, and I said, you look, we've had research, we've observed, parents that say, I am vicious, right? I am vicious. I'll take you out. If your child knows that you're that kind of a person, why would you throw yourself right into the fire? No person. We as human beings and our teenagers, we are self-preserving. They're not going to throw themselves there. What they'll do, they'll go and tell someone else. And unfortunately, if we don't become that safe space, we end up having our teenagers who don't know who they will talk to. And then they get someone out there who tells them, oh, I understand you. I hear you. I want to listen to you. And that's how our children end up being exploited by other people who have no good interest for them.
Yes, we need to make sure that we are the main influence in our children's lives. And that only comes by making them feel safe to come to us. There are some questions. There's 3 at the moment. So I'll start with Ross. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question, but I think it says motivating. Is there a reason why you use 4 things? Why 4?
Why 4?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I said, before you reprimand them for the 1, praise them for 4, right? That's literally it's like obviously 4 and 1 is 80% of, and 20%, right? The reason we do that is because the brain, there is a part of the teenager's brain that loves to be praised. As much as they look all hard and they don't want anything to do with us and they're feeling, oh, don't tell me that and all that, there is something they want to hear from us. They want to be told, right? I don't know, you guys, I don't know, I'm gonna drop this and don't throw stones at me, because I come from a background, as a Christian, and I want to mention this, and it's not because other people don't have that, but I want to mention this just because it has come to me, right? There is a scripture that says that when Jesus was being baptized, God's voice said, "This is my son, who I'm very proud of." And I want you to note, before then, if you're a person that reads the scriptures, before then, Jesus had done nothing. He had done no miracle. He was just a child, a teenager. He was just a young person, right? So he had not done anything to deserve him being told, this is the person who I'm so proud of. So even God, the maker of everything, knew how so important this praise is for this young lad, right? So when we talk about praising them, there is a part of the brain, especially in teenage years, that loves to be affirmed.
Yes.
And when I say 4, I think Ross asked for 4. Why 4? Because it's a can you see the balance? The balance of 4 to 1? When you tell someone, for example, let me give you a good example, a personal example. I have a daughter, and for the longest time, it was all the room. And I know most of you can identify with that. And I know a lot of kids that they don't make their room, and you feel this doesn't look good, and sometimes it even smells, right? And I knew that. So when I walk into her room, when I knock at her door and walk into her room, I have the option of saying, hey, come on, clean up this room. I have said it so many times. Or I have the option of saying, good morning, gorgeous. Did you have a good night's sleep? And then I have the option of saying, oh, your eyes look nice, or your hair looks nice. In that room, there is something that maybe I haven't seen or I have seen that looks nice. So what am I doing? I'm preparing the ground, right? Before I say, now you wonderful, gorgeous person, I trust that you want to live in an amazing space. So at what point do you plan to clean up this space where you, wonderful, amazing person, lives?
Yeah.
Most of the time she won't even answer. And what happens is they give you that, a sort of, it's a cheeky smile, knowing that actually it's true. My mom's right. This doesn't look nice. It's not fit for a queen. It's not fit for a princess. And it's up to you. You know your child, right? Maybe it's your gaming child. They're not doing anything apart from gaming and all that. It could be that you go to them and say to them, wow, you truly like this thing. You are a really focused person. I've watched you for the last, you haven't made a sound for the last 2 hours, right? You really are a focused person. Tell me more about this game, right? And believe me, when you go into their world, they feel valued. So they want to tell you a little bit more. That's obviously if they're not playing with other kids, because if they're playing with other kids, you're not in a safe space, right? So it's up to you to look. But whatever you do, before you reprimand them for one thing, look for 4 things, even 5 things. You know your child. And then drop the thing that you want them to do. And I do it all the time with the dishwasher. It's like they need reminding all of the time. And the reason I want to say, guys, us as parents, is because our children executive function, which is the frontal lobe, it's not fully developed. So their planning, their rational thinking, it's not there. They're still operating from this limbic brain, the emotional thing. That's why they can be grumpy and annoyed with you for almost no reason. You don't even know. So we need to be more understanding. And again, like I said before, this does not mean we excuse bad behavior. Just because your frontal lobe is not properly, it doesn't mean you be nasty to me. Nastiness is not part of, that is a choice. Being nasty, being unkind, those are choices, right? So obviously these are long conversations we could have, and I'm sure Paula offers coaching on such, right?
Yes, there's 3 more questions. I want to make sure we don't run out of time before we get to them. So the next one says, what if in the situation that you don't stay with your children, in case of divorce, for example, how can you communicate with them since you're not always there? So what's something quick that we can do in that situation?
I'll tell you what, a lot of us here, including myself, I had to co-parent from divorce, right? This is what we know. Research shows us that as long as you're steady, don't worry about what's happening in the other house. Focus on what you and your child do. Be consistent, because ultimately they will see who is consistent. They will see who is true. They will see who is authentic, because they are not little forever. So think in terms of, when you're here, am I being authentic? Am I being the best mother or the best father or even the best grandpa or whoever you are to that child? Because children are raised for all sorts of reasons by different people. What we know is, in research, we know all a child needs is one emotionally stable person. It's not even a parent. One emotionally stable person. For them to be able to be emotionally stable and self-regulating. So I always ask myself, how am I regulating myself? Not how am I controlling what they are doing at their father's house. Maybe the father say, you can sleep, you can stay until morning and all that. But when she's here with me, I'm thinking, sleep. I'm speaking about sleep is very important. Good food is very important. Good relationships are very important. And that is the story that I am telling and I am living and I am modeling all of the time. You win by the quality of your example.
Yes, that was very, very powerful. Thank you for that. So the next one, how do we navigate the challenge of balancing our cultural expectations, such as the way we dress, behave, and uphold traditions, with the media's influence, which often pulls our teenagers in a completely different direction? Before you answer that question, I want to say, first of all, I think we should examine our cultural expectations first and see even if we want or need to be doing that. But carry on.
Oh, I love that, Paula, what you said. And who is it that asked the question?
That's I think, I don't know whether that was passed to Afrikindness, was it coming from our Afrikindness email?
All right, then.
Maybe somebody.
Because I honor you so much for asking that question. And I wanted to call you by name, but obviously we don't know your name. But I really honor you, because that is something that comes over and over again. And obviously, as you can see, I'm a woman from an ethnic minority, and we have our cultures and all that. What I say to that, and I have to remind myself that as well, is that culture is progressive. Culture needs to have meaning. Why are you doing, even yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? Remember, intentional. Why am I eating what I eat? Why am I insisting that my child eats what they eat? I'll give you an example, right? My own daughter, And the reason I give this, I've got so many examples from other people, but they haven't given me permission to say it. And even when I talk about my daughter, these are conversations we've had with her, and I've said, I would like to share this, because I believe in asking for consent as well as assent from our children as well, when we share their stories, right? She was the person who would not eat any cooked vegetables, any. Can you imagine how stressful that was for me? Because I'm thinking, oh my God, how does she get the vitamins and all that? But here is what I decided to change it to. If she doesn't eat peas, what vitamins are in the peas? Where else can she get it? Is there something else that provides the same vitamins that she can eat? One of her choice. Mm-hmm. So it's about exploring why we think as we think, and also explore it with our children. One of the biggest things that comes, especially, I'll speak about this because there is a big research that's gone on, and especially people from religious circles. We carry our children to church, or most when they are little, we carry them, and as soon as they step into teenage, they don't want anything to do with it. Why? Why? Because they did not understand why they were going. But now, because they have the strength and the body to say, I'm not going, and there's nothing you can do, they don't. So it's about helping them understand, why are we doing what we do? And do you agree with this? In fact, as you begin to explore that, you will find that even yourself, there's some things you're like, what? Why have I always done? I've done this because my parents made me do it. I don't know what it means. I actually don't like it. I never liked it. Right? So, and again, when we talk about media influence and all that, one of the things, because I speak to young people as well a lot, I say to them, is what you're doing, is the choice. Always ask your child, is the choice you're making advancing you in the direction of your dreams? Is it for your highest good? And I'll tell you what, when you challenge your child to think in terms of, is drinking alcohol, is having underage sex, is doing this crime taking me in the direction of my dream? They know it's not. But no one has ever actually helped them to think like that. So what they're doing is, they're just doing what everyone thinks they should do at that age.
Sorry, Angela, can I just interrupt you very quickly? Only because this question is actually dealing with what you're saying. So if I just read you the question so that you can continue.
All right.
The second question says, as parents, how do we handle the disconnect when our teens are pulled towards lifestyles and ideas they see in the media that clash with our cultural values we try to instill, especially when they seem resistant to listening or engaging with our guidance? That's the most difficult aspect that most parents from diverse communities face. How do we address this and get our children to see things?
Oh, brilliant. That's an amazing, amazing question. And you're right. It was coming on to what I was speaking about. Again, remember, if you're a safe person, I mean, when I sit here and speak to my daughter and her friends, we speak about everything. And I can tell you, it's things I would never have I never spoke with anyone when I was younger. We speak about suicide, right? We speak about sexual relationships. We speak about, the new thing that the teenagers are doing of putting, instead of drinking alcohol by mouth, putting it in tampons and shoving them in their, bits that the sun doesn't shine. We speak about all those things and they enlighten us. And this is where we get both our anecdotal research and also proper statistical research, right? So the thing is, we need to first be that safe space for the young person to speak to you. Then they will come and tell you, oh, I'm thinking I'm now a boy and not a girl. And that's when you lean in and say, oh, well, tell me more. When did that happen? What made you think, at what point did this happen? And you explore those things. They are uncomfortable topics to explore, especially in our culture, very uncomfortable. And I can tell you, I've had this conversation very close home, right? I don't have to agree with it, right? I don't have to agree with it. But I can say to my child, if I am a safe parent, I can say to my child, I don't agree with it. But here's the thing. You are the master of your own life, and you decide whatever choice you're making. Is it for your highest good? Is it taking you in the direction of your dream? And if that's what it's doing, then carry on. If you know deep within your heart that it's not, then don't. And that's how children make decisions, because inside of every one of us, there is what I call the inner knower. It's the intuition. That which beats their heart, that which flows their blood from one organ to the next, that wisdom, if you allow them to listen to that, it brings to them answers that even we ourselves cannot bring to them. And you don't have to fight with someone, because the biggest problem we see is when we go hard and fight with them, they just separate from us and they go. And I'll tell you what, a child who is out there alone, knowing that the porch light is not on, they're not allowed to come back. They will destroy themselves there. But when they know, oops, I can go back to my mother's house, to my father's house. It's safe over there. I'm willing to have that conversation. I'm willing to right my wrongs. They can only do that when they think you're safe, when they feel you're safe. Otherwise, they will destroy themselves out there. And that's not what we want for our children. I know some of us think, like the clothes you're wearing, what is this? There's nothing left on you, to be honest. But can you find something in that child that is positive? I always like to go in terms of, is this person kind? Is this person loving? Are they doing their best for themselves? And when we start from there, other things, we can sort them out. It's not about the clothing. It's not about, there's so many, I call it, we stress the small stuff and forget the main things. But then, I know, Paula, you speak to parents about this. That's why understanding self and actually shedding a lot of those things that we attach ourselves to, that it must be this way, otherwise no one is at peace. Sometimes you have to detach and remind the child that you are the master of your own life. Yeah. And also, me, I love you, but it's possible to love you without agreeing with what you're doing, without accepting the stuff that you're doing, but I can still love you. And I'm not going to be embarrassed by what you're doing because I'm detached from your behavior, but attached to you as a person. So we must always be attached to our children, even when we are detached from the behavior. Yeah. Because the behavior and the person the person must always be a worthy, valuable human being. They may not behave like that. In fact, a lot of times, even ourselves as grown-ups, we don't behave like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of thinking that I encourage for us parents to. And I can tell you, even now, even myself, I have to work on that on a daily basis. Because I'm thinking, oh, this kid, a young adult, lives here, right? They can spend all day without speaking to me. And I'm thinking, like, and then when they need something, that's when they come to speak to you. And I feel used, right? But I can choose to look at that moment when they speak to me as the moment to milk and make those connections. Or I can decide to reprimand them. Oh, you only come to me when you need stuff and all that. I still do talk about that, but it's after I have connected with her. I talk a lot about connection before correction.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful connection. I'm thinking, how am I connecting? How am I connecting? How am I connecting before I correct? Remember, Ross, when you asked about the four one? Again, we come back to connection before correction.
Just, yeah, it's so important. And just to finish off, I just want to make sure that everybody heard when you said attach yourself to the person. So always remain attached to your child, or you can detach from the behavior. Those are two separate things, because a child who feels strongly attached to their caregiver, who believes that they are loved regardless, that's a child that goes the furthest in life. Not the one who cleans their room and says yes ma every 5 minutes and all that kind of stuff. The ones who know that they're attached safely to their parents, and that's what you want to always maintain. So yeah, that was really, really powerful. So thank you so much for that. I don't see any more questions, but I do want to read out this last comment from Melanie. Melanie says, yes, my daughters and sons talk about everything as well. Some have told me you shouldn't be their friend. My answer to this is, I am their mother. Why would I not want my own kids to come to me for everything, even the uncomfortable? Why would I want them going to strangers over me? My mother and grandmother are the same with me, open, and I talk to them about everything. I'm so blessed that my kids and myself are comfortable talking about any and everything. So yes, and amen to that.
Hey,
so
I am so grateful that you said that, because that's another thing that a lot of parents, especially in my culture, they like to say, oh, I'm their mother, not their friend. And I think, again, we go back, and these are people from my religious background. And I say to them, hold on a minute. Does God say that he's your father? Does he say he's your friend? Does he say that he's your what? So how? And they're like, oh my God, I've never thought of it like that. Why? Because it is possible to be a parent as well as a friend. It is possible.
Absolutely. 100%. We have come to the end of the webinar. I know we need double the time, but we've come to the end. And I think there's some announcements that we need to share. But I just want to say thank you so much, Angela, for sharing all your wisdom with us. It really was powerful. So I'm so thankful to you. And you can get Angela's book called Smuggled, about teen exploitation and trafficking. And so, yeah, so please do check out this book. There's a QR code there that you can scan. That'll take you to a link to find out some more about it. So thank you, Angela, for that. And just very quickly, I believe, let's have a look. Yes, please take our survey and let us, your feedback really matters to us. So please click the QR code or copy that link that's up on the screen now, and you can fill out the survey there. We would love to hear your thoughts and your feedback, please. And I think there's another one. Right. Again, we have the QR code there and the links are there. So there's all the resources, parent resources that you can check out. Please do visit that link and see what is there that can help you. Oh, another survey is here. The first one is a survey that seeks to understand how Black African children are supported with their racial identities at home and within the community. So please do take those surveys. We would love your feedback. It really helps us with our research. So please do click on those links or the QR codes that take you straight to them. And our next webinar is being held by the research team. So that's on Monday, the 4th of November, and it's Reclaiming Narratives for Children. Again, the QR code is there. Please scan it there and you can sign up, and please do come along and support this webinar. It's really, really important topic. And then we have another one on the 28th. That's this Monday, 6 to 7 o'clock. Understanding and supporting sensory needs, and that's with our neurodiversity community program. And these are all our links here. So please feel free to follow us and support us and keep up to date with what we're doing and what we're offering. And we are all done here. So thank you for the Community Fund for funding this incredible webinar. Thank you, Angela, for your time and your wisdom and everything.